Welcome to the Whole Conversation, where we explore ways to love more for the good of the whole. And I'm Dr. Julie Kroll, here with Marian Head, author of The Revolutionary Agreements, and also co-founder of the Agreements Institute, where she's teaching people all over the world how to do these agreements. Welcome, Marian.
Thank you, Dr. Julie. It's great to be with you for this conversation today.
Say about seeing the best in myself and others as one of your revolutionary agreements.
It's one of my favorites, and they change over time. Now, we've been practicing these agreements for over 30 years, and there's thousands upon thousands of us. And yet, there's always a deeper level to go. And this one, many years after I was already practicing it, came to be the most important one for me. So I think I'll start, Julie, by sharing a personal story about how this particular agreement saved my marriage. Because if we can't apply it in our everyday situations, we're not going to be able to change the world. We can't change the world anyway. We can only really do it from the inside out. But let's start here, and then maybe we'll go to the political arena. So the year that I wrote Revolutionary Agreements, it was published, the first edition was published in 2005. I had been building a business that was doing quite well. My husband took the business over so that I could really focus on the book. And you know what? He didn't do it the way I did it. You have to go to Respect Our Differences to hear about that one. That's one of the other agreements. I agree to respect our differences, which I was not doing. And I just wanted him to do it the way I did it. And I became very critical, as in criticizing him often, frequently. And it wasn't only about work. It wound up spilling over into other aspects of our lives. On our 24th anniversary, I thought, if something doesn't change, I'm not going to be celebrating our 25th. I mean, I had so much angst. And he was just making me crazy. So the next day, I was gifted by seeing a small journal. It was called a gratitude journal. And I thought, wow, I could maybe practice what I preach and get this little journal and start focusing on what I'm grateful for about Glenn. Instead of looking at him every time, seeing things I didn't like, start focusing on what I do like, what I appreciate about him, what is best about him instead of what is worst about him. And so the first morning, I picked a place to sit. It was actually in our bedroom in the rocking chair that I brought my little son up in. My husband sleeps later than me, so I got to sit there in the morning and just look at him and think, what is the best in him? What do I like about him? What do I appreciate? And I got to tell you, the first morning, it was hard for me to come up with something because I was in this mood for almost a year.
Yeah.
But I wrote something. I did write something down, just a little book, one little page, maybe a little phrase. And then the next morning, it was a little bit easier. Well, by the fifth day, it was fun. I mean, this sounds ridiculous after a whole year of looking at what I didn't like, but it's not hard. It's just, what are we focusing on? So I began to focus on, what do I like about him? What do I appreciate? And every day I would write something down. By the end of the first week, I was transformed. And years later, Glenn suggested that I publish this journal, which was very personal. So at first I didn't want to, but I did. It's called Gratitude Journal for a Healthy Marriage. And on day 5 of my writing, there's a sentence on that page that is the crux of the matter, which is, even without asking Glenn to do anything differently, I was falling in love with him again. So this is really significant. He didn't even know I was writing the journal. He didn't even know I was so upset with him. He must have known at some level, but he says he really didn't even know. And here I thought my marriage was almost over. So it was all happening inside of me. And when I shifted and began to see the best in him, it shifted our relationship. For me, I suspect it shifted it for him too, but it worked. Let me just say that. With,
Beautiful.
without him having to do anything. So, I mean, take a moment right now to say, if you've got an issue with somebody, if you have a relationship problem, you might be able to fix it all by yourself without even involving the other person, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's big.
Exactly. So, okay, so Dr. Julie just wants to jump in here and go, yes, as a professional who works with relationships and individuals for more than 30 years myself, yes, just by your focus, just like you're talking about the focus of our ability, what we focus in on really creates our reality. So if we are focusing on the negative, we're just going to get more negative, because that's all we're seeing. I have an example of this, a real example that even our listeners can do. It's like if you say, when's the last time you saw a pregnant woman? And most people go, oh, wow, I don't remember. Unless I know somebody who's pregnant right now, I don't remember the last time I've seen a pregnant woman. Well, when you're pregnant or you want to get pregnant, guess what you see everywhere? Pregnant women.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing when you buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. I love these examples because it's exactly what we're talking about. And your stories are transformative. But if you're shopping for a car and you're thinking, I would really like to get this kind of car. And if you ask somebody, they might even go, what's that? They've never even heard of that car. Like if you say, and some kind of a name for it. If I just say a Prius, most people know what a Prius is right now just because it was so popular. But if I say, I want a Chrysler 900 or something like that, they go, what's that one? I got to look for that one. And guess what? I'm seeing them everywhere. Oh yeah, there's another one. Oh yeah, there's another one. Because that's what I'm focused on.
Mm-hmm.
It works. It is how we are designed. And so I just want to drop that in, Marian. Yes, thank you. That's how we design. So that was a beautiful example and life-changing for both of you and your relationship.
Yes.
I'm curious what you might say for looking for the best in myself. This one is so big for people. There are a lot of people who really don't do this very well. They don't do the love more for ourselves very well, and we're all about loving more right now. So how do people really, any stories, advice, tools for that?
Mm-hmm. Well, it can start with a simple list. What's the best about me? And just make a list. What's the best about me? And then maybe even looking, and this works both inner and when you're looking at somebody else, what are my strengths that are also my weaknesses?
Mm,
Because when a weakness shows up and we are self-critical, if we've identified what the strength of that same weakness is, and I'll give you one in a moment, then we can shift to the strength. And I have one again with my husband. I mean, we're close. We've been together for 35 years. And so my husband is very slow about things. I mean, he moves slowly. Well, I see that as a weakness because I move fast. Now, here's the strength of his slowness. The reason he's slow is he's so present. He is right here, right now, with whoever or whatever is in front of him. He's not in a rush to get to the next thing. He's not worried about being late, like I have been in my life. It's such a beautiful thing. I aspire to be more like that. So, in a moment when I'm critical of his, like, move along, I can switch to the strength that's on the other side of that weakness coin.
mm.
So we can do that with ourselves. Just if we take a moment and say, what are my greatest strengths? Is there a weakness there that sometimes I'm critical of? Well, when that comes up, switch to focusing on the strength. There's a wonderful illusion of a woman. You look at this illustration, and there's an old woman you can see, or you can see a young woman. Do you know that illustration that I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know that the artist, it was actually his wife and his mother-in-law? I found that out recently.
Wow.
Yeah. So depending on what you're focused on, you see
Yeah.
one or the other. You cannot see both at the same time because you're either looking for one or the other. Well, it's the same when we're looking at
Mm,
ourselves. Are we looking for the goodies, or are we looking to, and what feels better? You know, it always comes down to, how
mm.
do you want to feel?
Yeah,
So if I'm beating myself up, how's that feel?
yeah,
I'd rather
yeah.
feel good about myself. Yeah.
Oh, I hear you on that one. You know, I always used to say to people with the same thing about the coin, I use with the continuum. And so my example is, if I'm spontaneous and creative, you know, and that's a big part of who I am. I'm spontaneous and creative. So I'm not organized and plan ahead sometimes, you know? So we can look at that, just like you said, with every strength we have, there's a weakness. With every weakness, there's a strength. Every single quality about us.
Hmm.
That's a great way for us to focus. Thank you on that.
You're welcome, Julie.
Okay, let's just move this into one more thing then, because
Okay.
these times call for revolutionary agreements, and we said maybe we'll go to the macro here.
Mhm.
I tell you, I have fallen in love with Donald Trump. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why I've fallen in love with Donald Trump. And this came after my little sobbing and crying piece, and looking at really wanting to help humanity wake up. And I'm sitting there resisting what is, and I'm looking deeper into, how do we look for the best in others? And whether I respect the person or not respect the person, I am so in love with him for showing us our weaknesses, showing us as a collective, as a country, showing us our shadow, showing us what's broken. We're looking at a lot of different things that are broken, but we're also seeing a lot of things that still work.
Mm.
And so it's really helping all of us dig deeper and look closer, and really make some much needed change. You know, this is an important time on our planet. And so I'm looking for the best in the situation and learning to love more in that way. So I'm really curious what you might have to say about the bigger political arena when we're looking for the best in myself and others.
There are three what I call pillars of a good life, and all the agreements self-organize into one of those pillars.
Mm,
Seeing the best in myself and others is in the pillar of gratitude. So when we can ask ourselves, well, what are we grateful for? What can I be grateful for about whatever it is that I'm feeling some upset about? You know, what can I be grateful for there? It shifts our perspective, and gratitude lifts us, and it lifts the vibration around us. It lifts the world. I mean, if you go to an angry mob or an angry marchers, or you go to people who are holding up signs that say love more, and they're speaking their truth too, which one feels better? We need to keep checking inside for which one feels better, because we can have the same outer results coming from different places, and it's going to feel different.
mm, yes. Beautiful example, and thank you for even looking at the contrast. Many people were talking about the protests on Inauguration Day and then the protests the day after, which really weren't against something, they were more for something for the most part. But we are seeing a lot of people expressing their voices, and to come from that place of anger or fear or hate, like we often cringe at, versus coming from that place of loving more, is so different. And so that place of for something, and so standing up for what you love and what you value and what you respect and what you honor,
Mm,
with gratitude, for that. Mm.
yes.
Mm. Oh, Marian, thank you. This again was a delightful conversation, and I so appreciated having you here. And thank you for this gift to the world. What a resource for everyone in these times. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Julie. I'm so happy to be able to share this with everybody. So we'll cover another agreement another time, yes?
Yes, I hope we can do them all. So thank you very much. And listeners, you've been watching the whole conversation. And this is all for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.